you. Good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Matthew, good to have you back, man. A little ice, little snow, little rain, little mix, but you're back in business.
It wasn't as bad as they said it was going to be. So
that's hype, man.
Probably could have made it into the studio yesterday, but watched the show that you did with Brad and had Paul Mueller on, and Brad did a great job of breaking it down, and Paul did a great job of breaking it down. So I am back.
All right, we are going to do something a little different today. We have Edwin Evers on. He is going to be live via Skype. Skype's a little sketchy, but we're going to try and make it work.
Sounds promising.
We're going to get him on very first thing this morning in our first segment. He's got some business that he's got to take care of at the top of the hour. So I thought, all right, we'll just flip everything and get him on during our first segment and jump right in there and kind of break down the leading money winner in professional fishing right now.
And also leading the Bass Pro Tour's Red Crest standings. Will be the number one angler heading into the first cup that they have. You know, those first two anglers, the top 30. And we'll talk about that after Edwin's on. There's some big names who won't be fishing in it. But right now, Edwin leads the way with a 4-point lead over Jordan Lee. Then Jeff Sprague, Brent Naylor, Andy Montgomery, Randy Howell, Bobby Lane, Alton Jones, Randall Tharp, and Gerald Spohr round out the top 10 after two stages of the BPT. But, man, hard to beat Edwin with a second place on Kissimmee and then a first place on Conroe. He $142,000 for his efforts on the BPT so far, and then I think he's guaranteed another $4,000 for the first cup. And if that is any indication, he could qualify for the World Championship there and then be in good position for Red Crest at the end of the year.
Yeah, all good stuff. All right, let's bring him in. Edwin, you there, man?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, man. Thanks for taking time. We got you, man. There's just a slight delay, but it's pretty good. Not bad right now. Thank you so much for taking time out. And already on the instant feedback, man, they want to talk about the win at Conroe, and more specifically, they want to jump right in there and talk about catching that 8-pounder on a drop shot.
I know, of all things, it blew me away. You know, I had that thing rigged, and I maybe threw it, 4, 5, 6, 7 times each day, as a follow-up bait. When I miss one or one would bump my bait, and I hadn't caught anything on it all week. I mean, not even one. And you're in there power fishing, throwing big baits, a jig and chatterbait, and all the things that you do to try to throw, catch big ones. And in the last 10 minutes, for whatever reason, I turned around and that rod was right there. I picked it up, pitched it up there where that fish had just bumped my vibrating jig, and I kind of pick up on it. The wind's blowing, pretty hard this way, and I pitched it right here, and I just noticed, man, I got a pretty good bow in my line. I started easing up on it, and I was like, it's swimming off, and I set the hook thinking it's probably going to be another one of them stinking 2-pounders that I've been catching all day. And, man, when that thing come up out there, I was like, is it a grass carp? I caught a giant grass carp in there, and then I saw it just, and I was like, it's a big one. I mean, it's no 5, 6-pounder. It's a big one. It was pretty exciting to be on a drop shot.
I kind of equated that, too, with knowing what everyone else had, being in the either the 8th or the 9th inning and already having a 1 or 2 run lead and then hitting a grand slam to just make it impossible for anyone to catch you in the bottom of the 9th. And it was really cool to be able to see the reaction of the other guys that just went, oh, crap, we're screwed. Because up to that point, Mark and I had talked, it was kind of close. You kind of let people stay in it, but you consistently caught enough fish to stay ahead to where you had a pretty good idea you had won. But was that the first time you had ever caught a fish and knew before the tournament was over that you won?
Yes. I thought for sure that had to be the nail in the coffin. The math on it was, I thought at the time, a 15-pounder, and then the guy said maybe, I think it was like 13 pounds. I don't remember what it was, but then I got to think on crud. Somebody just caught a 13-pounder last week here. They were talking about that at one of the events, and I was like, I better fish a little bit more. Just catch another one.
All right, 2 events in, Edwin, and a first, a second, a lot of money being won, and one of the things that I know some of the fans that I've spoken with, and I'm curious too, how much different is it to try and gear up and fish one of these events from a strategy standpoint when you look at what you've done your entire career? To have so much success early with these first 2 events, did you do anything different, or was it basically kind of the same attack mode?
It really was. At Toho, I didn't have very many bites. I had 2 areas where I had bites. There's only bites I had in practice. Took my first day in that first area, stayed there the entire day, just as if I was fishing any other tournament. And the second day, I started back in there and it wasn't happening. And I ran down to the next lake, and that pattern really had gotten a lot stronger than what I really thought it was. That was, just around those arrowheads up there. And, I'm fishing the exact same baits, the same way, the same style. The biggest difference is just the intensity, the magnification, because, in the past, at the end of the day, you just needed 5 fish. It didn't, your 5 best ones. And the only time you got upset was if you lost a 3 or 4 or 5 pounder. You didn't really ever care if you lost a 2-pounder or a 1.5-pound fish. So it was kind of a little break in the day. You're reeling that fish in. How big deal if I get it in or I don't get it in. It's kind of a small mini 20-second relaxation of your brain. And then all of a sudden, you go to this event, that 1.5-pound fish is just as important as a 5-pound fish, because everything goes to your bottom line at the end of the day. So it's magnified by the entire day. It's just those little 15-minute breaks are actually kind of nice. I don't know what to say, but it just gives you a second to take a breath. And I don't feel like there's ever been a time in the tournament trail where you have to, I don't know how words can't describe it. And until the general public can be a part of what this is, and that technology is coming. Once they experience it, I think they'll see what we're all talking about.
All right, I want to go back to the 8-pounder. A number of people want to know what your setup was on your rod and reel and everything that you had going when you caught that fish.
I caught that fish right here. Is a drop shot. I had a short little tag on it. It's a Bass Pro tungsten weight. This is a Berkeley bottom hopper worm, the 4.75 size. It was June bug. This is 10-pound line. I just went out in the shop and cut that off my spinning rod. It was a first fish I ever caught on that spinning rod. I just got them in. It was a 6.9 Platinum series, Johnny Morse. It's the red ones with the new Platinum spinning reels. It's the best spinning reel we've ever had at Bass Pro Shops, size 3. I had 20-pound, the yellow Bass Pro braid on it, and had a 10-pound leader on it. I had an 8-pound leader on it earlier in the event, and I broke one off on that drop shot, so I went to a 10 that final day. And that's how it happened. I like hooking fish on that drop shot, especially those, because generally speaking, you'll never lose that fish. I mean, the only way you'll ever lose those fish, and here I'll lose the next 10, but is if you just try to horse them too much. If you can just hold on to them and keep them out of any cover you may have, that little hook, it gets good penetration. So my whole goal is, once I've hooked that fish, to just stay connected to it, take my time, not get in a hurry. And I'm still scratching my head. I fished so hard, and up to the end, my biggest fish was a 5-pounder. I had some 4.11s, a couple of 4.11s, and, some 4-pounders. But to catch an 8-pounder and to be on a drop shot, it was pretty funny.
Why did you even have that thing tied on? I mean, I think the average guy, you're talking about Lake Conroe, talking about how muddy it is, talking about power fishing at a big fish lake. And we saw a number of guys throw it. You're fishing shallow water, total non-traditional way to fish a drop shot in basically what my mind has thought of where you think of drop shot. But, what made you even have that on the front deck?
Man, great question. But that is something I always have rigged up, and especially this time of the year on a lake, especially like Conroe. Conroe gets a ton of pressure. So, when you go to flipping, like the Pit Boss, a black and blue bait, 90% of the general public that's down there, they're flipping and pitching and heavy line. And the great thing about a drop shot is I can let that bait sit right there in that fish's face, that I've envisioned that it's spawning or guarding an area that it's fixing to spawn. It's up off the bottom. So much of Conroe's got a very soft bottom. Guys, it's just something you got to have rigged up. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just something that I have rigged, 365 days a year. The only things I change on my drop shot is obviously the weight and the length of the tag and the size of the bait. But it's just a different, with that weight, that bait being up off the bottom, a fish can see it. It's stationary. You can still move, give the bait action, but you're not moving it out of the strike zone.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're like the most winning angler in MLF history. Now, this was your third MLF win. And I look at the top 10.
I think Bob.
What's that?
I think Kevin's got 3 of them, and I think Bobby Lane may have 3 of them.
Okay, you're tied for the most winning angler in MLF history. Details. But it kind of leads to my question. Bringing this in, I talked about the top 10 anglers in the BPT standings after 2 events, and going through it, there's 4 anglers that had no experience in the format before who really caught him in the first 2, and 2 who had limited experience. And there's a whole bunch of guys who have been doing this for 7 years now who are not fishing in the first cup. Does it surprise you, some of the names who didn't thrive? I mean, you obviously have a lot of experience, but there's quite a few guys that are chasing you that don't have any experience that figured this thing out pretty darn quick.
We had 2 pretty trying events. Both events were abnormal conditions. My record in Florida is very subpar, and with the conditions we had in practice, they were the most miserable conditions that a person could have. Just rain and wind and clouds and so there were it's been some taxing events. I can see those guys that are, with that said though, it's the stoutest field that's ever been put together. I can't speak for them, but we had some tough events that just weren't for the norm. And, whatever reason, I was able to find a few areas and just kind of stick with them, but don't count any of those people out. They're coming.
All right, I want to go to the instant feedback. A couple of good questions. Brock K wants to know why you went right instead of going left on that channel swing.
Right instead of going left on the handle swing. That's a great question. But,
Edwin doesn't even know.
All right, we'll move on. Let's go to Clay from Arkansas. He wants to know, do you like having the off days during an entire tournament week?
I think it's going to be pretty neat going forward. At some of these events, we're going to have some activation on those days where we're going to be able to really interact with the fans and the crowd. At the first event, I don't know, 20, 30 of us went to the Bass Pro. We had signed lots of autographs there. So it's going to be neat for the fans. It's neat from an angler's perspective to regroup, to get your tackle in tip-top shape. If you guys see my truck and boat dirty this year, you should get on to me because I don't have any excuses having these off days to keep things clean and in tip-top shape. So I think there's going to be some neat opportunities to interact and to do some sponsor work on those days off.
All right, I have kind of an MLF question, just the whole entire platform and the way things are going so far into 2 events, Edwin. And I really want to know what your thoughts are. There are so many people that are they're totally intrigued and love Major League Fishing and the way that the format is being performed on the BPT. There's other people that they're resistant to change and they don't like it, and they're very vocal about it, especially on social media. What are your thoughts about actually trying to engage the anglers into a format that is very similar to Major League Fishing, to where they can actually experience what you guys are doing? And do you think that is important to continue to build your brand to where people can actually participate at that level in an MLF format? What are your thoughts?
A couple thoughts. One of our major goals was to introduce this to a whole crowd outside of our base crowd, our base fans. We're hoping to break into something bigger. And, the format really lends to it. The television show is very compelling. Just the product that it is, it's a very exciting thing to watch. I've gotten multiple texts. I was amazed. My phone has never blown up like it blew up after this tournament win, of people that are lukewarm fans, maybe really not even fishermen, but they just loved the format and the show that we wouldn't normally have, that were glued to it. For our hardcore fans, those guys that we're arm in arms with, the people that are in the trenches that bass fish just like we do on the weekends, whenever they can, what we're lacking, what we need for those guys is they just got to experience. And right now we're leaving those people out because they don't have the means to experience it like we are. And, it's coming is all I can say. Is I've seen it. The technology is coming to where, when they go to have that Wednesday night jackpot out here on Oologah, those guys will be able to fish in a Major League Fishing style tournament, and then they'll experience that live leaderboard, that score tracker, and all the pressures and catching all the fish. And when you lose a 2-pounder, you're as upset as you ever were when you lost a 5-pounder in the past. So if those guys will just be patient, it's coming. It really is coming, and it's going to make a huge change in all our lakes. If you really think about it, I got to release that 8-pounder right there where that fish was spawning. In the past, that fish is going to be hauled back, and so many of our lakes get such a huge concentration of fish, like right in Wolf Creek at Grand, that, man, it changes the complexion of a lake. And going forward, I think when this new technology comes out and hopefully a lot of the tournament trails adopt it, it's really going to make these lakes that much better when we release all those fish right to the areas that we catch them.
If I'm not mistaken, you actually believe you caught the same fish twice this week or last week at Conroe. You caught one, I think it was a 1.5.
I was looking at every one of them to see if they had any hook holes, because if you notice when I was fishing, I'm always looking at my depth finder, my Lowrance, and I've got on the map, I waypointed all those fish the day before. Waypointed every one of them, and I'd make multiple pitches to those areas, and I caught a lot of them. But even I kind of thought the second day, and a good reason I had that drop shot tied on, just to show them something different. I didn't catch a lot of them. I only caught one of them that I know of twice.
I'm pushing for, and I think it has some legs, a non-intrusive kind of blue dye pen that the marshal or the official, once he weighs your fish, can just put a little dot on the tail that'll go away after about 30 days. So we know as fans if that's a fish that had been caught before in the tournament. I think that would be an awesome statistic to follow.
That'd be interesting.
All right, back to the instant feedback. Chris in Pennsylvania wants to know, how difficult is having 2 other guys in the boat with you, a camera guy and an official?
It's not near as bad as I would have ever thought. With the way that our format is built, we have a 30-minute ride-around period. We get a fish right up to the very last second. In the previous events, you may be 40 miles up the lake and it may be blowing 30 miles an hour, and you've got to get back with both those people in your boat, and you beat them to pieces. And Now you don't. You can take your time back. That final day, it was rough, and we went back, but I went back 25, 30 miles an hour. So, that Z21, a big platform, most of us have 21-foot boats. And with the fishing the cups before, I'm used to it. It's those guys are really trained well to be just quiet as a mouse in your boat too. I have no issues with it, and I would be one of them in the past that did. But the guys that we're dealing with now are really trying to work with us and be a part of it.
All right, a number of people want to know. You guys are
What?
What are you laughing about?
Nothing.
He's just being Matt. He gets a day off and he thinks that he can do whatever he wants to do. All right, a number of people want to know. They want to be assured that you guys are doing everything possible that the live stream is going to stop freezing eventually. I mean, you guys are working diligently to get that situation corrected. Right, Edwin?
I am going to make a phone call when we get off here this morning to address some of that, and hopefully I'm sure they all know about it. But, the few friends that I have, I've heard, this and that and the things that they're going through. I'm going to bring all that to the attention of them. And without a doubt, because that's going to be super, super important going forward, that it's good for all the fans.
All right. Let's see here. Mark in Minnesota wants to know, what are your thoughts about zeroing the weights?
It's this is the first event that we've had that the entire event took place on the same lake. And it kind of, I would imagine for some of the guys that had big leads and big, leads through the first rounds, that it probably stunk. But, going forward, the format really is meant to be on multiple bodies of water if possible. We were kind of behind the 8 ball when we started this whole thing and had to make the most of every situation we had. So, this next event at North Carolina, with different competition days being on different lakes, that's really how I envision it being. And it won't bother me at all. At Conroe, haven't done the math, but it is what it is. We all knew it going forward. And, I tried really, really hard to manage my fish and not to waste any of them.
One of the things that I found interesting was bait selection. I was wondering in this thing going forward, are you going to have guys that are able to compete by fishing slow? Is it going to be dominated by guys who covered water? And you fish pretty dang fast for the majority of this tournament watching you on live, but you go back and you take into account some of the primary baits that were used down in Florida on Kissimmee, and then I believe 8 out of the top 10 utilized a bladed jig here on Conroe, and you started thinking, boy, that seems to be the perfect bait for an MLF format as far as able to get a big bite, covering water, a reaction bite, being able to fish it slow, fish it around a number of different covers, and catch numbers of fish on it. Would you agree that the bladed jig is going to play very prominently throughout the year with the new MLF format?
I think it's just the time of the year and the couple lakes that we've been on. The bladed jig has been a great bait, this time of year for the past 10 years since it's came out. Randall Tharp might be watching this thing and thinking, man, I kind of had some monster fish every day flipping that big jig around. And, Dustin Connell caught that 27-pound bag down there. His best 5 would have been 27 pounds in that final round. At Toho, and I'm pretty sure he was throwing a big worm. I tied up next to him in the lock, so it's still fishing. It's so early into this. Every angler that I've talked to, they're still fishing the exact same way they ever have. Randall having the confidence in his big jig and flipping around docks, and Dustin Connell, doing what he does with his electronics. It's early, but I can tell you from me, I'm fishing the baits that I think I've got the most confidence in to catch the biggest and the most amount of fish in a short amount of time.
All right, a couple more questions, then we're going to let you go, Edwin. Matt in North Carolina wants to know, have you been to any of the lakes in Raleigh?
Not a one. No, never. Don't even have a clue what they look like.
Ask him
That's
about
cool.
Wasn't it Edwin that someone pointed out the weird positioning of the power pole foot pedal.
Oh, did you put in an additional button for your power pole?
I did. I put an extra one in there. Just I have one over there on the console and up and down, but you're trying to gather that fish to keep it from falling and make the most amount of your time. So I put one right there where I could tap it down to keep from going forward, getting up on the bank, maybe making another pitch to where I just caught that fish.
Be honest, do you think that's something everyone will have this time next year?
I did talk to Happy, the service guy from Power Pole, and he said he has sold a whole bunch of them in the last 2 days.
All right, that's pretty cool. All right, the final question, Edwin, and a lot of people on the instant feedback, they want to know also is, what are your thoughts going to be going into the Classic?
Oh, man. I'm pretty excited about it. That's an event that I fished at one time, and one year I went off on a tangent and fished FLW, and I think it was the only decent event I had all year in the FLW event, and I'm looking forward to it. It's got smallmouth, got largemouth. I think it's going to fish kind of like some of the lakes we have around here this time of year, so I can't wait. It's going to be a sad time, with it being my last BASS event. It's where I all started. That's where my heart and soul was for so many years. And, it's going to be a trying time going across that stage the last few times. But nonetheless, I'm really looking forward to it, competing and being at the final one.
All right, man. Great job so far this year. And I know you're short on time, but I'd really like to get you back on after things kind of settle down a little bit. But the Sky feed seemed to work okay. So all that work you put in trying to get the buttons to go and the laptop to work, everything seemed to work okay, man. So I appreciate it greatly, and best of luck to you, man.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate having me on anytime.
All right, man. We'll be in touch. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. There you have it. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And he said Conroe owed him one. And he said it a couple times. He said it, off camera and on camera. Remember the 2017 Classic? He had 18 pounds on the first day. He comes in. He had that crazy shad spawn spinnerbait bite with a couple bedfish mixed in. He had 20 pounds. He was in third place going into the final day of that Classic when Jordan Lee had that epic comeback and actually only came in with 2 fish for like 6'11". He also, going into the final day of a TTBC, had been in second behind Brian Snowden and didn't catch him. So numerous times on Conroe, which is kind of an odd fishery considering there's never been a tour event with the size. It's hard to put a large number of boats on there, but definitely likes the fishery and came through on the final day, which is something that he had not been able to do in the past. So a cool win to be able to watch him get that done.
All right, absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break, come back, more stuff to cover here on a Wednesday. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sleek new design with easy control file. The clearest images underwater with uncompromising range. Live mapping from the touchscreen. View notifications, video, even Google Maps on screen. And for the first time ever, real-time view of fish movements with live sight sonar. HDS Live. New from Lowrance.
It's about the hours spent getting everything just right. It's the attention to detail. Good, just isn't good enough. It's the years spent on the water day after day. When you tie on a bait by Strike King, you're standing on the shoulders of legends.
Pros depend on hydraulic jack plates to get the best out of their boats. Do what they do. Demand Atlas performance. Atlas gets you from the bottom to the top in less than 8 seconds, even with the big 4-strokes. And when you gotta turn right around and get that heavy load back up in rough water, Atlas's innovative design and American-made components will get you there with confidence.
I'm at Depot. Just look for yourself. There's an Atlas jack plate on just about every professional's boat.
The Atlas hydraulic jack plate. You can depend on it.
Hey guys, Aaron Martins here. I'm going to be telling you about a new product by Sunline. It's Siglon PE x8. I've been using it almost extensively all year for my frogging, flipping, drop shotting, shaky heading, worming, jerk baiting. It's by far my favorite Sunline braid. I honestly, I don't say this unless I think it's true, but honestly it's the best braid in the market of any of the braids. Definitely check it out. It's a price point line, $14.95 for 165 yards, and that could last you a whole year, just one spool with using leader material. It's Siglon PE x8. It's my favorite braid, and I think if you use it, it'll be your favorite braid too. AFCO has a new foul weather rain suit called the Hydronaut. A lot of the features that I really like about it first is the speed vent hood. If it's raining out, you know how a person gets wet is when you run down the lake and the hood comes down. With the speed vent hood, it's going to stay up. It has a camera mount in the pocket on the chest. The Hydronaut has a 2-layer, 100% waterproof nylon shell. If you're interested in a rain suit that has a lot of cool features that's going to keep you dry, you need to check out the Hydronaut from AFCO.
All right, we are back on a Wednesday. And I have an announcement to make, Matthew.
Hit me with it.
We're going to do a forced show this week.
Oh, okay.
And I'll let everybody know, yes, we're going to do a Sunline Hotline show tomorrow where the entire show is dedicated to hearing from the listener and the viewer.
I thought you were going to announce that you were going to an electric shaver.
It still looks bad, doesn't it? Everybody was asking me about it at school, too. Not good. But tomorrow, yeah, we're going to open up the phone lines, and you guys are going to be able to voice your opinion on whatever you want to talk about here on BTL.
It'd be very interesting to see how the Bass Central Open at Toledo Bend shakes out. I was unaware. It kind of snuck up on me that the tournament started today on a Wednesday. I know you and Brad talked about some of the anglers in the field, but I don't know if you mentioned that Harold Allen is among
I did not. I was going through
those competing.
I was going through the photo gallery last night, and I saw that. That's when I texted you and Dave, and I was like, look who's making an appearance on Toledo Bend.
Brutal conditions for that.
Oh, yeah.
The rain, the wind, the water.
Post front.
Yeah, they're going to definitely earn it in that. But, I see John Cox is fishing it, a number of Fitzgerald Swindle, like you mentioned yesterday. So keep an eye on that. That weigh-in begins at 3:45 Eastern time, so 2:45 our time.
Yeah.
Today it'll be interesting to see the first step to qualifying for the 2020 Elite Series.
Yeah, they had a ton of rain down there, and as you know, Toledo Bend, not one of the bodies of water in the nation that you want to be on, post-frontal with wind.
No, not at all.
Pretty ugly.
Yeah, I was looking at the conditions for the BFL coming up on Saturday. and it's going to be blowing like
grand?
15 to 30 after all the cold, and it's muddy, and they had a shad kill there. I'm glad I'm not fishing that one.
Yeah.
Talking about points in qualifying, I mentioned with Edwin, he leads with out of a possible 160 points, he has 159. How'd you like to be Jordan Lee, who won the first one and had another one, and he's 4 points out of the lead.
Yeah.
But Edwin, Jordan Lee, Jeff Sprague, Brent Ayler, Andy Montgomery, Randy Howell, Bobby Lane, Alton Jones, Randall Tharp, and Gerald Spohr round out the top 10 after the first 2 stages, which is important because the top 30 anglers after every 2 stages, their points accrue for the entire season for Red Crest at the end of the year. But every 2 tournaments, they'll start over, and then the next 2 tournaments, the top 30 after those 2 tournaments will make the Cup, which is how you make it to the World Championship, the big money that's available in the Cup. So I was kind of looking at it and looking down at the 30 line, and there are some big time names after 2 events, one in Florida, one in Texas, that are moving on to the next 2 events without the possibility of making the World Championship yet, and some work to do to make the Red Crest, and they did not catch them.
Yeah.
So, Todd Faircloth would not have guessed that one. He's in 32nd.
Yeah.
After two events. Odd Defo. Aaron Martins.
Swindle.
Gerald Swindle. Skeet Reese. Jacob Wheeler. Dean Rojas. When was the last time Rojas got off to a bad start in the season where it went in his former home state of Texas, and he always catches them in Florida?
Yeah.
Ish, finishing 50th. That's a shocker.
Yeah.
Jacob Porosnik, Andy Morgan, 56th place, Kevin Van Dam.
I'm with you, man.
Mike McClellan, 59th. Cody Meyer. I mean, that guy catches them everywhere they go. He's in 61st. Brandon Polinick in 63rd. Justin Lucas in 67th. That's kind of ironic. Lucas and Bertrand, who battled it out in the Angler of the Year last year, are tied with 46 points in 67th and 68th place in this deal. James Elam, Roy Hawk, and Tommy Biffle bringing up the rear by 10 points. He's only got 10 points in this thing, Mark.
Not good.
After 2 events. So
not good.
And the way it's sounding, there might be some home cooking coming up for Tommy Biffle where he won't have to drive all over the country.
Yeah, a lot of buzz around here in anticipation that they're going to announce, and we have no confirmation whatsoever, but we are getting a lot of indicators that there is going to be a BPT stop somewhere in Oklahoma, maybe Grand Lake, maybe Fort Gibson.
You got to look at where do you have good cell service, where do you have multiple lakes around the area.
Yeah.
So I think we've concluded that Grand is an excellent option for that.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm hearing that from not just people here in Oklahoma, but some of the people across the nation that are involved in the industry are saying, hey, man, we're kind of hearing things that we might be coming to Oklahoma. So we'll see. Nothing confirmed.
It'd be good for us.
Yeah.
This North Carolina one coming up after the Classic is going to be, I think, a real good test as to the possibility of how engaging and how good this format can be for the average fan, because now you'll have 2 under your belt. The guys are going to be used to it. We've seen what it was, the different vibe when they switched to Lake Garcia in the first one on Kissimmee. We've seen when they stay on the same one. And I forgot to ask Edwin about it. I'd read somewhere where they had dredged the area he fished in, and he didn't even know it. And that's why no one else was back there, because they were dredging it during practice. But it's the same fishery, all 6 days with the weight zeroed. And this next stop up in North Carolina is 3 good lakes, 3.
Yeah.
So you have all different rounds are going to be on a different body of water. They've got a lot of their technology stuff dialed in, so it'll be a completely different vibe for all 3. But it's still mind-blowing that you've got these guys that are fishing it, and there's been 3 different formats so far in the first 3 tournaments, as far as 2 lakes, 1 lake, and now 3 lakes. So got to be flexible for the BPT.
Yeah. On the instant feedback, Carl from Ohio, longtime viewer, listener, he wants to know, have you, specifically you, heard any guys talk about, let's just call it buyer's remorse, making the move over to Major League Fishing?
No, I have not. I have not heard of a single guy like that. And I talked about this. I don't know if I actually talked about it on air, But on the way home from Conroe, I was kind of looking up different articles in journals about why people are resistant to change. Did I talk about this on air on the first?
I don't think you did. We talked about it.
Yeah, and why people are resistant to change. And this had more to do in personal life and business life. A lot of people would rather stay in something. In the quote,
status quo.
The quote was, you'd rather live with the devil that you know than open the door to the devil that you don't know. Something along that lines. And it talks about all the different stages of change and why people are resistant to change. Because I wanted to know it personally too. Why are there so many people who are anti or so many people who are pro? How hard it was for these guys talking about this decision. And I came across this kind of theory, and it's basically like a U or a smiley face. And it has to do with change. It's some professor who came up with this thing, but it made total sense. So if you think about it like a U, Mark, when you start on one side of the U, that's the very start of the change. And everybody is on board with it, and it's awesome because it's brand new, and everybody is buying into it, and it seems easy because you're going down that side of the U into the curve at the bottom, right? So as you're going down, everything seems great. Everyone's on board. It's brand new. There's excitement, and then you get to the bottom of the U, and all of a sudden it seems like the top of the U where you just came from is so far away you can't remember it. Now you have to climb up the other side of the U to get out the other side where it's positive, and that's where the negativity comes in. That's where the questioning, that's where the second guessing comes in, and then you either eventually it fails there, or you figure out a way to climb up the other side. And I was talking to you about this. I think that both of these organizations, and I'm just going to say BASS and MLF, because FLW remain mostly unchanged for the most part in this. I'll talk about these.
Lost some guys, but
right, same format, same formula. They're past the letter U in the alphabet. So right now, both of these organizations, you got everyone on BASS going, this is great. You got everyone on MLF going, this is great. I've talked about the number of anglers who have really benefited from this format, who wouldn't have otherwise. But they're at that top of the U. They're just going down, and I don't think you'll be able to judge this as far as angler happiness, angler satisfaction, what they really think about it, until you get to the bottom of that U. And then they either have to start climbing out the other side to where this is a viable product that's here to stay. And I'm talking about both organizations,
right.
Or whether the scale is going to tip in favor of one or the other. So I think for the majority of this year, maybe even going into next year, it's still going to be on that downward track of the U until you get to the bottom. You're not really going to see exactly kind of how all this is going to shake out and be able to go back and correctly analyze and look at how these guys are viewing it.
All right, as we're doing the show on Wednesday, MLF just came out with a press release. They've announced Stage 5 is going to be Smith Lake in Alabama.
Oh, they're going for what time of the year?
April 30th to March 5th.
Oh, wow. So they've had the tough ones.
Yeah.
They've had the tough ones. Now we're going to see a numbers game.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking in a negative way. I'm just talking about you're going to see spotted bass and a lot of fish catches. It's going to be a totally different vibe than what we've seen in the first two events.
Yeah, I'm excited about this Raleigh thing. 3 different lakes, and see how these guys attack. What kind of strategies. It's such a different game. Now, I want to bring up a couple things here, Matthew, about MLF real quick. Remember we talked about, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months ago about how you could potentially intertwine legalized betting on professional fishing. It would be next to impossible, even after 1 year, in my opinion, to try and handicap these guys in this format. What are your thoughts on that? It's just so different. Even from a fantasy fishing standpoint, it would be difficult until you got enough data to where you can kind of see the trends and really the patterns that these guys are trying to attack and the method. I mean, Edwin said it. He's like, I saved some fish.
Like hook protectors on.
There's no reason to win a shotgun round or any reason to win an elimination round because there's no incentive there. If you're comfortably in a position weight-wise, why would you want to burn what you're going to need if you make it to the final round?
That's a great point.
I think there's something that needs to be added. I don't know what they could do. I mean, maybe they give the guys more money for winning a shotgun round or winning a elimination round or whatever the case might be. I just think right now, during the qualifying, all the drama and all the excitement from a fan's perspective is with the 15th guy to the 25th guy.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed?
Yeah.
And I think they've done a pretty doggone good job at trying to focus on those guys when those situations arise during the event.
Yeah, I mean, who would have guessed after 2 events, after the names we named, that are below 50th out of these 80 guys?
I mean, somebody, Andy in Indiana, saying that Schrader said that there was a $500 bonus each day. Well, to be quite honest with you, $500 not that much. I know it's $500, and people, I don't want to get
fishing for 100 for 42 grand for 30 grand.
I don't want to get hate mail about somebody saying that, $500 is a lot of money. Well, I get it.
That's a sushi tab for KVD.
Yeah, I get it. All right, but I don't think there's an incentive. That'd be a great question for a guy. What are you going to do? You going to go after that $500, or are you going to save your fish for the later round?
They change that. They completely take that issue out of the equation when you fish 3 different lakes. Completely take it out, because you're going to catch as much as you can in the first 2 rounds.
100%.
You'll catch as much as you can in the third round. You'll catch as much as you can. I think that is the future of it. Yeah. And I think you're going to get to see the guy who is fishing the best that week, the guy who is fishing the best, not the guy who has figured out a lake the best, but the guy who is fishing the best is going to win on the 3 different lakes. We've never seen anything like it before. But to say that it's revolutionary is wrong, because when the Bassmaster Majors were, remember, they would go from Oneida to Onondaga. They went from Dardanelle to another lake there in Arkansas, and that was kind of cool at the time there.
Yeah.
And they've had the whole courses, and it's the other thing I was thinking of, and I'll bring this up now. We have some time, right?
Yep.
And I didn't get a chance to say it, but I was talking to someone, and everyone's saying, there's this 5 bass format. It's the best 5. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it should be. Well, that's not true. Because when this started, it was 15.
And they kept
for
them.
bass.
And they kept them. They strung them up.
Then it went to 10. Then it went to 7. Now it's 5. So I went back, and just the way that we kind of analyze things that happen on this show is we like to relate them to other sports.
Yeah.
So I went back to major rule changes in other sports, in baseball, in football, in hockey, near the genesis of their beginning. Some of these are late 1800s, but it's still 30, 40 years in after baseball had been created, or things like that. I mean, just crazy stuff that you would have no idea. In baseball, you used to be able to catch a fly ball on the hop and they'd still be out.
Okay.
They had deals where the spitball was outlawed, but if you were a known spitballer, you were grandfathered in and you could still throw the spitball until you retired. I mean, there's just crazy stuff like that that's going on.
All right, keep going.
But all I'm saying is, we were conditioned to the 5 because it had been the 5 for so long. But, Rick Clunn fished when it was 10, when it was 7, when it was 15. Yeah. So there is no magic number. 5 seems to work pretty dang good.
Yeah. But do you not what's your opinion on this? I'm going to ask you kind of the same question that I asked Edwin. Until guys start to experience and really start to engage themselves in similar activity or similar tournaments that these guys are doing, is that going to be the thing that takes them over the edge to where the guy, okay, I get it now.
You're still assuming that that the utmost importance is put on the hardcore fan following and accepting, where, like Edwin talked about, have we had an MLF guy who's deep in MLF talk about the importance of the hardcore fan, or is that focus seem to be on the casual fan who doesn't fish tournaments? That seems to be a lot of where their focus is. The outside of the hardcore fan.
I think that's what they're trying that.
That's what I'm saying.
But don't you have to establish and continue to engage the group that you've already captured from a fan perspective?
I would believe so. But also, I mean, if you can't really relate, there's a lot of people who are still going to watch it. But yeah, would it behoove them to be able to have all of the hardcore fans to be able to relate to what Edwin was going through? Because a week prior to that, they had fished their MLF club format and been like, and then been able to learn on how he managed his fish for their event that was going on next week where every fish counts. Yeah. And that exists. I use it in the Podunkers league that I fish in Oklahoma when I can.
Yeah, but you're not fishing for big money, though. When I say big money, like 10 grand.
I'm fishing for $1,000. That's pretty big money for
they got a lie
$100
detector
entry fee in the club. No,
how do they do the official
because
thing?
you have a co-angler with you, and he watches you weigh your fish, and he's, when he catches one, you watch his fish, and he says 1 pound 3 ounces. And
so you get paired up with some random dude,
and then you write it down on the piece of paper, and the co-angler signs off for the boater, and the boater signs off for the co-angler. Now, does it require an equal number, and you have to have a co-angler, and
does everybody have to have the same
Everyone
scale?
has to have you get a scale at the very beginning of the day.
Okay.
You get an official clipboard. You get an extra battery. All the scales are zeroed beforehand. And they do a little seminar if anyone's new. And then you go out and you catch, weigh, release your fish. And then at your 15-minute break in between each period, you stay where you are. You're not allowed to move around during that. And that's when you pull up the app on your phone. You have a code, like I'd be number 094. And I type in 094,
okay.
1 pound, 5 ounce. And then you can see how everyone else is doing, too, in between.
So let me ask
period.
you this. How many guys participate in that? On average,
the first one I've only fished 2 of them. First one it like fills up like that.
How many guys?
20. You can only have as number of guys as many scales as you have. So 40 guys, 20 boaters, 20 co-anglers.
Okay.
I think the max that they have is like 25.
So whoever the director,
the first 25
or whoever is,
that sign up, they announce when it is. The first 25 that sign up and find a co-angler link are in.
All right.
The last
are
one
they
we
using
had
the same MLF scales? Is that what they're using?
They're not those exact ones that they
Okay.
use in MLF, but they are all identical scales. And they have the little clip on them, and you use the clip and stuff. So I have experienced the MLF format, both getting my teeth kicked in and getting out to a big lead and saying, holy cow, I'm doing the right thing.
Okay, then let me ask you this. Has there ever been any discussion, because you guys are utilizing this format, about are all 20 or 40 or whatever the number is, guys, are they huge fans of Major League Fishing?
No, we don't really talk about that. We were trying to catch fish, Mark.
Well, afterwards, dude.
No.
You don't have any
No,
social
not really.
activity afterwards?
Not really.
So you have no idea?
No.
So why do you think there's an interest in there in these guys doing that then? Because of the format, strictly?
Strictly because of the format. Same reason I did it, out of pure curiosity. Now, does it feel like I fished a tournament, like a club tournament? No.
Yeah.
Totally different feel.
All right.
Totally different feel. I fished totally different in that than I would have had it been a 5-fish limit. I missed a lot of the elements about a 5-fish limit. In one of them, I felt like I could have smoked a big 5-fish limit, but I've only gotten 5 or 6 bites, so I completely abandoned that.
So let me ask you this. So can you watch, if you're going to continue to fish this MLF style event, are you going to continue to watch Major League Fishing in these events and actually pick up on strategy that you could use, that you could apply to the exact format that they're using?
Absolutely. One of the key is don't string yourself out. One of the things that I've heard at least 5 guys say behind the stage is, when you run during your period time with the 2.5-hour period, everyone's running in a 5-fish format, and there's often not a lot of change, because there might only be, if you catch eight fish and 3, if you're 5 and then 3 help you, there's a lot of time where it's not changing. But every single time you're not fishing, someone's gaining on you or someone's getting further ahead of you. So there were guys who spent a lot of run time, especially in Florida. Some guys who, went from the lower end up past the jungle at Conroe. And by the time they stopped, they had dropped 8, 9, 10 spots in the standings.
Yeah.
And then you look at how a guy like Edwin fished. He had his bait. He was very productive. He was very good at keeping his bait in the water for the majority of the fishing time. You've got that 15 minutes too, to where, instead of having 1 bait rigged up, you can have 3, 4, 5, 6 baits rigged up, and then work on those baits during your period break.
Yeah.
So instead of having to retie, and you do that saves you 10, 15 minutes. So if you're fishing a lot, you're very efficient as to managing your time, and you're fishing a bait that gets a lot of bites and finds active fish.
Yeah.
I mean, those are all 3 things that you don't really think about in the 5-fish format. That's why I asked him the question about the bladed jig. It's the perfect every fish counts bait for the entire springtime period.
Yeah, that's a
whether
good
there's
point.
grass, whether there's not grass, regardless of what cover you're covering, it's hard to beat a bladed jig.
Good point. All right, a couple of things on the business side, and I found this very, very interesting, Matthew, and some of the guys out there, they may go, some of the people watching, that's meaningless, but from a business standpoint, I think it's very, very interesting. All right. The company that Bass uses for all of their live streaming platform, the company is called Bright Cove. Been around a while, do an outstanding job. Their platform, very, very, very solid, as you can see with the majority of live stuff that Bass does. They very stable, and they do a good job. The company that Major League Fishing is using, guess what, is being bought out
By Bright Cove?
by Bright Cove. So now, I don't know, and that company, and I don't know how to pronounce it. They've been around a while, too. It's Ooyala. It's Ooyala.
Ooyala.
Ooyala is the name of the company that Major League Fishing is using for their streaming platform. Well, there was a press release and a message from Jeff Ray, who is the CEO of Bright Cove, announcing that they are acquiring all of their assets, and they're doing this basically to grow Bright Cove's global scale and look really to the forward of advancing the technology of streaming. So from a business side, come on, folks. Everybody knows they've had issues. Are they working on it? Yeah, probably. But this is going to be very interesting now, because unless they continue to utilize that platform on the Major League Fishing standpoint, you're going to have both entities now using the same exact platform. So just a little side note there. All right, the other thing is last week when we had our situation with the audio board and stuff, we didn't put the replay out there. And for some people that watch the live show, this may be a duplicate, or you might be hearing this for the second time. But I am very, very curious. On February 20th, USA Today and Golf Week are going to live stream a very prominent collegiate golf event for the first time. They're going to have some heavy hitters in there from a school standpoint. Oklahoma State, defending national champion. Let's see who else. Southern California, Stanford, LSU, University of Oregon, and the host school is going to be UC Davis, which is located not too far from, well, it's in Northern California, just outside of Davis, California. Some of the sponsors that they have involved with this event, and this is the first time that they've done this: Titleist, Avis, Rite Aid, Coca-Cola, Sprouts, the farmers market. All right, and then there is a very large donation from a family by the name of Roberts. So I'm very, very curious to see how much interest there is, because we all know the number of people that play golf is very large. The amount of exposure that golf gets is very large. Are we going to see more viewers watch collegiate golf than professional fishing? That's the question that I asked. So hopefully we'll see, they'll come out with some press release, and we'll see how they do on that. First time they're going to do it, I'm going to be watching, because I want to see what they do the first time out of the gate with the difficult task of trying to cover 18 holes of golf. It's not as difficult as trying to do live streaming from a body of water where you have no idea whether the cell signal is going to be good in a certain area. At least on a golf course, you know the cell signal is going to be good. So we'll see, Matthew.
Yeah, they attempted to do Bass Track for the Open on Toledo Bend.
There's like, no cell service.
There's like 5 guys checked in.
Yeah.
Like 10 guys checked in.
Yeah, there's no streaming. No cell service on Toledo Bend. Very, 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 very difficult. All right, what else, Matthew?
Oh, that's about it.
Did you see how much Mr. Machado signed for with the Padres?
No.
This is a big deal, man. 10 years, $300 million.
That's a lot.
To play baseball, for crying out loud.
That's a lot.
$30 million a year.
That's a lot.
By the way, switching sports, did you see who's on the longest winning streak in the franchise history at 11 games?
Blues?
St. Louis Blues, baby. They won last night in overtime over Toronto. And you talk about a good example of somebody in Major League Fishing right now struggled the first 2 events. That's kind of like what the Blues did at the beginning of the season. Dude, they couldn't score. They couldn't stop shots. They couldn't do anything. And now all of a sudden they've won 11 in a row, franchise record. And, we have a connection to go to Blues games.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
And I'm looking into it to see maybe if there's a weekend game that we
Where's
can
your,
travel up there.
Joseph signed stick. Where's that?
In the office.
Oh, okay.
In the office. All right.
I'm excited to go to the Elite Series events because there's like 3 guys who played hockey that are on the Elite Series now.
And a bowler, too. Who was the bowler?
Oh, that dude from New Jersey. But all the Canadians played hockey. Like, I guess, like, Chris and Corey were pretty good. Like, Chris was really good. Like, was offered, like, a minor league contract and turned it down to fish.
In hockey? Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
That's what Mercer was telling me.
All right. I want to thank Edwin Evers for taking time out. I know the Skype feed was a little dicey, but he lives in the country and the internet.
Good.
What he has, that's what we got to work with. But greatly appreciate him taking time out and giving us some insight on what went down at Conroe and a little bit of Lake Toho, too. Tomorrow, a 4th show for us this week. It is all about you guys. And for those iTunes listeners and people that watch the replay, tomorrow is your chance to call in live right here on the show. Give out the number quick, Matthew.
405-253-5543. That is the Sunline hotline.
Yeah.
405-253-5543.
All right. We've got some very good stuff we're going to give away tomorrow as we focus on you, folks. It's all about you, the listener and the viewer. Tomorrow, the call-in show. Get your stuff ready. Matthew and I will try and answer any questions that you might have and hopefully get some good discussion topics from the people that really matter, and that's the fans out there, Matthew.
Yep.
All right. Everybody, stay warm, be safe. We will be back tomorrow with the Viewers Show. Everybody, stay tuned. We're out of here.